Well, hello there. It's me, Penny Johnson. Thanks for tuning in to my at-home video for the Chamber Music Society of Mississauga. You're looking at me here at my desk at my home in St. Catharines, Ontario. We are solidly in winter here this January 2022. It's very, very cold outside, and my snowbank is at least as tall as I am, and I'm about 5'8", so that's pretty tall snowbank. And I had the pleasure of shoveling all that earlier this week. But you just heard me play a three-part motet written by Orlando di Lasso, who was a Belgian Renaissance composer. He lived from about 1532 to 1594. This is about 100 years before Bach was born. Of course, Bach's music is really what I tend to play the most of and what I enjoy, and I think it's what I do best. But this music attracts me very, very much so. And I have another of Orlando di Lasso's motets coming up in this video. The one you just heard was called Ave Regina, caelorum, and it is from a text check my notes here. The text is one of 4 Marian antiphons, possibly from the 4th century. Now, I'm not focused on the text, obviously, with a title like that. This is sacred music. As well, the other motet that I will play for you is based on a sacred text from Psalms in the Bible, but I am not at all thinking about that when I play this. What attracts me to this music is the stillness, and therein lies the connection with the artwork that you see me researching here. Still life paintings. You've heard of them, I'm sure. These were prominent in the early 1600s, particularly in the Netherlands, although composers throughout Europe were painting still lifes. And when we think of a still life, we think of vases of flowers, most likely. Sometimes we see like banquet still lifes, I believe they're called, with scenes of fruit and maybe a big chunk of ham and a knife, or the vanitas, which I believe means essentially emptiness. And these are reflections on the brevity of life, the fact that death is imminent for all of us, and the objects in still lifes are often quite symbolic. I had written some notes down here. I chose specifically floral still lifes. There are also hunting still lifes where there are dead animals that have been hunted, and that is not so much something I wanted to be pairing with this calm music. But the floral still lifes, I've been collecting pictures of these and adding them to my Pinterest board. Maybe I'll show you some of that here. Let's go to my Pinterest board. Okay, so you can see my Pinterest board here, scrolling through the many images of floral still lifes. And what I love about these is the color and the texture and the detail. Something that I think is present and a necessity when you're playing polyphonic music. Now, Bach's music is polyphonic, many voices. And Orlando di Lasso, the composer whose music you're hearing today, was an earlier polyphonic composer. This is music that has multiple melodies moving simultaneously, none of which is any less important than the other. It's kind of musical imitation. And you're going to see me here in just a moment scrolling through those same images. They're in my living room. If there's one thing I've learned about the pandemic and trying to put myself out there online, digitally as it were, is that you want to make personal content. And so I am trying my best to do that here. hopefully I can be kind of like a little friend visiting you here with these pictures and stories. But the still life for floral settings paired with the stillness of these Renaissance motets is something that I think is quite attractive and precious. Here's some lovely close-ups of a few of my more favorite images. You can find, if you search for my name, Penny Johnson, on Pinterest, it'll come up and you can check out these images if you like. But this stillness, still life paintings, and also what we're going through, as stressful and crazy as it is still life. So a little bit of a play on words there too that I find quite intriguing. But this music by Orlando di Lasso, like these paintings, is indeed still and open and calm and spacious. And it doesn't have a whole lot of notes, as you've noticed. When you think about music of century or two later, we get a predominance of instrumental music. And in fact, Orlando di Lasso did not write any exclusively instrumental music. It was all vocal music. And he was a singer, and he was born in Belgium. He worked quite a bit in his early years in Italy, and then spent the bulk of his last years in Munich, Germany, and he really loved it there. He was very happy in Munich, and there was a quote somewhere about him where he said he just wanted to, because he had been enticed. Someone had tried to entice him to leave Munich to work for more money, but no, he wanted to stay there, and he loved his garden. And he loved his home, and he didn't want to leave that. So Orlando di Lasso loved gardens, and incidentally, his daughter married the German painter Hans von Aachen. So that's kind of an interesting parallel. But the other connection, and we're going to see me now researching this again at my desk, the other connection here, as I was reading in which book was it? This wonderful book I have, The Dictionary of Subjects and Symbols in Art by James Hall. I got this when I was studying at the Eastman School of Music. And I looked up still life and flowers and was finding some very interesting things here. And it talks about the flowers in particular. Because as I say, there are a number of different kinds of still life, the banquet scenes, the hunting scenes. But in terms of flowers, it says, quote, flowers in general are the attribute of spring personified. They symbolize the evanescence of human life in allegorical still life. Still life. Sometimes the attribute of hope and of logic. And then speaking of logic, this represents one of the 7 liberal arts. And of course, when we look at the 7 liberal arts, which were traditional curriculums from the secular learning back in the Middle Ages, that consisted of 2 groups, the trivium and the quadrivium. So the trivium part of the 7 liberal arts consisted of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And apparently, according to this book, flowers represent logic. Now, the other part of those 7 liberal arts, the other 4 liberal arts, the quadrivium, that is, include geometry, arithmetic, astronomy, and here it is, the clincher, and music. So I just thought that was such a lovely tie-in between this Renaissance polyphony that is so still and open and calm, and these paintings of still scenes of flowers the connection between flowers and music being logic and therefore an essential element of study. I really love that. And when you listen to this music, and as I say, there's another motet coming up that I'm going to play in a few minutes. You notice that it's not music you can tap your toe to. You're not bopping and grooving to the motets of Orlando di Lasso. This music was written, as I say, in about 1575. Now, by no means do I know anything about the history of clocks. I would like to learn more about that, but I did just do a quick little search and found an early record of a clock possessing the second hand. Dates back to about 1560. That's just a few years, 15 years before this music was written. So not enough time, obviously, for the impact of a second hand on the clock to impact the rhythm of this music. And I think that's why this music is so just like Gregorian chant almost, just resonant, pure sound, moving slowly and in layers because it's polyphonic. So these are just some of the things that are in my mind. The point of this, of me performing these two motets on the piano, which may offend some of the purists out there, is that I wanted to create calmness for you. It creates calmness for me, that's for sure, and I hope for you as well. Incidentally, regarding colors, and maybe let's just go back to the flowers again quickly. I wanted to add that I have another book here. I just ordered it from the bookstore. It's The Theory of Colors by Johann Goethe, famous writer. Now, I have not read this whole book. I just got it, but I was flipping through it. This book, by the way, is from 1810, so long after Orlando di Lasso and the Dutch still lifes. But he was talking about colors. People experience a great delight in color. The eye requires it as much as it requires light. And there's a few things he has to say about some particular colors, about yellow, which is a color that comes up most of the time in these still lifes, is always accompanied with light. Yellow carries with it the nature of brightness and has a serene, gay, softly exciting character. Yellow excites a warm and agreeable impression. Hence, in painting, it belongs to the illumined and emphatic side. About blue, blue brings a principle of darkness with it, says Goethe. It's a kind of contradiction between excitement and repose. Blue gives us an impression of cold and reminds us of the shadow, an affinity, with black. Red, which is in virtually all of these paintings, Goethe says that red conveys an impression of gravity and dignity, and at the same time of grace and attractiveness. Finally, green, which of course is present in these photos, the eye experiences a distinctly grateful impression from this color. And in some of the photos you will have seen that there's a bird, sometimes there's a butterfly or a little caterpillar. The bird, according to my art dictionary, is a symbol of the human soul. And this includes the winged creatures such as the caterpillar, the chrysalis, and the butterfly. These all represent the human stages of life. Flowers, according to the art dictionary, especially the flowers containing dewdrops, these are symbols of the shortness of life and of decay, death. And finally, a vase of flowers points the contrast between life on earth and in the hereafter. So those are some of my thoughts as I play the music of Orlando di Lasso, music that was written, of course, for 3 voices to be sung a cappella without instrumental accompaniment. And I found these scores, this sheet music, online, and practiced them as you would. They were a little challenging because they're written in 3 staffs, and the middle one you have to transpose down an octave. But there's imitation, augmentation, diminution, inversion, just like Bach uses, and I quite enjoy it.